It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belghast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 472. Tonight I'm joined by Ammo.
Hello.
Ashgar.
Hello.
Kodra.
More fodder for the pile.
Tam.
Hello.
And Thalen.
Hello.
I know what Gloomhaven is. What is mini Gloomhaven?
Mini Gloomhaven. Gloomhaven Buttons and Bugs is a tiny thing that they had as an add-on to their last Kickstarter, which was the one for a Gloomhaven reprint, and more relevantly to me, the Gloomhaven RPG. But this tiny game they produced as an add-on was much simpler to actually make than all of that other stuff, so it's out already, and I got my copy recently. And this thing it just is Gloomhaven, but single player, and extremely compact.
Maybe that's what I need.
That's cool. Is it an add-on to the core Gloomhaven, or is it just its own thing?
It is standalone.
Standalone.
It's the sort of conceit is that your character did an oops and got shrunk down.
So it's a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids type thing?
Yes, Honey, I Shrunk the Adventurers. By pissing off the Aether Enchanter, a character you may be familiar with if you've played Gloomhaven, because they come up in the plot quite a bit.
They help me make my items better.
Correct. But also, yes, things happen. But the idea here is you still have these similar card mechanics as normal Gloomhaven for your actions. It is slightly condensed. You have fewer cards, but you can play them twice, basically. You have a front side and a back side.
Ah. Do they still have an upside and a downside?
They do, yes.
Neat. Instead
of having a modifier deck, you have basically a modifier list that you go through. One line, the first line, for instance, has -1, 0, and +1, and you roll what is basically a fudge dice to determine between those. Some of the other rows have other things, there's a miss on one row, there's a crit on one row, and enemies use similar mechanics rather than having their own modifier deck. There are extremely tiny miniatures of the starting 6 characters in Gloomhaven, and for maps, you have the back of the scenario card, which is the size of a standard card. That's your map.
That's very funny.
I have not had a lot of chance to dig into this. It just showed up at the end of the week, but
So these must be very tiny miniatures.
They are extremely tiny miniatures.
Like Warhammer 40k epic scale?
I'm not sure they're that big. For enemies, you use the little tiny, almost standard cubes that come with almost every board game.
Yes.
Your characters are not much bigger than that. There are eventually things about progression, and there is, in fact, a campaign and modifiable difficulty. So it's going to be interesting to sort of dig into this.
Do you know what character you're going to play first?
I have no idea. Thinking about the Crackheart, since that's kind of where I started originally, the tutorial suggests you start with the now renamed Bruiser, formerly the Brute, which makes sense. That character is straightforward and, at least in the base game, has a lot of HP. So it would make sense to start there. I will say, looking at some of these, there is somewhat obviously less support since you're solo. So even the Tinkerer has more offense in that deck. But a lot of things that are familiar from the main game, if you've played it, or its digital version, are still here, like the Sorceress. I don't remember what you call that class when you start. Spellweaver, that one.
Spellweaver, yes.
Still has the Regain Your Lost Cards card.
Ooh, yep. I remember that being good.
And it's been really cool to see how things just sort of got condensed into a version that worked for this tiny board game.
I think it's going to be interesting, knowing that you probably are going to have lines where you have confidence you at least won't miss. You aren't on a 0, a crit miss.
Yeah, that is a thing. There's still -2 lines. I have seen that there are little tiny cards that go over the, this is inset somewhat in a board, and there are advancement cards basically to get things like Pierce or Empower Self on certain rolls, or just, adding some +2s. Yeah, it seems like it will be potentially interesting, and I look forward to digging into it a little deeper.
Yeah, I'm curious if it's when is it available to non-backers?
You can buy it now, and they say it will ship after it ships to backers. So like I just got mine, so probably real soon.
Nice.
Mario versus Donkey Kong.
Yeah, so this is one of a couple of games that my son has recently got into. That and Princess Peach Showdown. So I've not played it myself, but I've been watching him play it a bit. It's cool. They decided to take kind of the concept of puzzle levels from Mario Maker and make a game about it.
Yeah. Some of the puzzles maybe specifically the 2-player puzzles give me like a Gyromite vibe, which is interesting.
I mean, interesting. I was going to say like, yeah, Gyromite I can see. I could also see like Kitty's first Portal concepts. It's fun.
Yeah, the Portal 2 2-player stuff, that as well.
But yes, there is 1-player and 2-player levels where you're trying to like have one person hit a switch while the other person can go across and come up with creative ways of doing this. There's collectibles that are a little bit more challenging to get to. Have you played it much, Thalen?
I've played some of the demo with my son, and it's pretty entertaining trying to recover all of the toy Marios.
Yes. There is the plot is that there is a Mario gacha machine that is super popular, and all of the gacha machines are sold out. But Donkey Kong wants them so badly, he goes to the toy shop, the toy factory, and steals them all. So you need to steal these toys back from this monkey.
It's kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I don't know. It is yet a different way to approach. I'm always interested in like, how does Nintendo decide what is the segment of the Mario brand that this idea fits with? And I feel like this is one of those ones where they really got it right. Like both classic Donkey Kong and like Mario's platforming mixed into this like interesting, not as like high speed platformer, but much more deliberate puzzle platform really works well.
I think it's really interesting that they've turned like classic Donkey Kong into puzzle game series.
Mm-hmm.
Because they've done that a few times.
This is a long running series at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember this being on the Game Boy, I think. Or something like this on the Game Boy. And I don't remember.
The first one of these of this specific branding was a GBA game.
Yeah.
I want to say.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was GBC or GBA, but I remember this being on a Game Boy.
Yeah, Mario vs. Donkey Kong was originally 2004. So
I
this is the
forgot
20-year anniversary. But also, like, the original Donkey Kong is in many ways a puzzle game, and it's neat to see that like DNA spiral into this new series that they've been doing.
Yeah. Okay, so this new Mario vs. Donkey Kong is literally a remake of the GBA game.
Oh,
that I did not know.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Nice.
Okay. I was having deja vu over here. I'm like, I swear this thing exists.
Yeah.
I had no idea that this game had ever existed, and now it's on the Switch, so people will play it. I mean, this is probably unfair. The GBA was a very popular console. It's also 20 years old, and from a time like
now your kids will play it.
My kid will play it, and also like games are more popular in general. Like I have to imagine more people have a Switch than had a Game Boy Advanced at the time.
Likely.
That's probably true.
That's probably true.
You might have a harder case for the DS though, which is where the series ended up immediately after this.
They sold a lot of DS units.
We found our 3DS and managed to get it powered back up so that my son could play Sun and Moon as he works his way through all of the Pokemon. So I'm going to need to figure out, is there a sane way to play Gold Silver?
Yo ho ho.
A physical copy of Heart Gold and or Soul Silver.
What's that on?
DS, so you can play it on 3DS.
Okay.
You know, you might be surprised about the GBA versus the Switch.
The Switch? Really?
Because you may have forgotten about the GBA SP, the one with a good light and unfolded.
Yes.
And
that was
sold-
popular.
That sold a lot. And that was 2003.
I'm kind of like fascinated. Like, I feel like the Switch is ubiquitous at this point. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
I mean, like,
they sold a lot of them. Yes.
yes, they have
fairly
sold a lot
ubiquitous,
of
yeah.
them.
They sold more Game Boys.
The DS was on another level.
Yeah.
The DS was on another level, and it honestly, like, I'm looking at the reported numbers. The DS wasn't. It was more than the GBA, but not by as much as you probably think. Like 15 to 20% more, which is a lot. Don't get me wrong.
I thought it was like 50% more.
No.
But also, like, yeah, we've been on a downward trend since the PS2.
This is actually interesting to me. Like, is this a point that maybe Nintendo's decision to go to like unifying their handheld and console?
Absolutely.
Yeah, like the Switch exists because Nintendo didn't necessarily want to stop making plug into your TV consoles, but their handhelds have outsold their consoles like 2 or 3 to 1 forever.
Yeah.
Like any Nintendo console that you can name was outsold by its handheld counterpart.
Yeah. Portable gaming
every generation.
there is a huge audience for that.
Well, but then this is an interesting question. Was the Switch a mistake? Like, was moving to a unified platform not correct for Nintendo?
Doesn't sound like it.
No, it seems like it's working just fine. Like, it's also really important to remember that you could, for a lot of the GBA's life, you could pick one up for like $60 or $70.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
Price point matters. I mean, I was reminded the other day of an old E3 story. Anybody remember the Sega Saturn?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, like so basically having completely dunked on Sony in the previous round of consoles because nobody remembers Sony's console prior to the PlayStation.
I mean, they attempted to work with Nintendo on a console prior to the PlayStation.
Yeah, for like all of 24 hours.
Sega comes out at E3 in 96, 94, something like that. And is like
95.
I mean, it was nuts. It was one of those, I think they had pyrotechnics and like dancers on the stage, like the kind of thing that old E3 used to do. Talking about how incredibly, insanely good the Sega Saturn was going to be and how powerful it is and how all the games that you love were going to be up-resed. It was going to be $399. And
the games
was
industry in the 90s
stores
was a whole
right
thing,
now, which would have been nice if they had happened to tell any of their retailers. Whoops. And then, like, immediately following was the Sony presser, which consisted of a dude in a suit walking on stage, like, tapping the mic and going, the PlayStation will be $299, and then walking off stage to uproarious applause.
Yep.
And, like...
And I think we all know how that console generation went.
Yeah. Price point makes a big difference.
Well, this has also been Nintendo's advantage, basically, since they have stopped largely competing on the axis of who has the better hardware.
Yeah, I mean, it's been like that since the N64.
Yeah,
was the N64 competing with the Xbox?
No, it's the generation before that. It's competing with PlayStation.
PlayStation, yeah.
Yeah, PlayStation and Sega Saturn.
Yeah, and that's the last time that they kind of attempted to compete.
Well,
I mean, they made a big deal about the fact that they were a 64-bit architecture.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of got pushed into the role of having to compete on games not on console because they were still cartridge-based and everyone else was CD-based. And
discs, yeah.
They had very limited storage space.
The GameCube was more technically impressive than the PS2. Like, significantly so.
Honestly, yes, it was. Honestly, I think the PlayStation 2, I think a lot of its success was backwards compatibility.
That certainly helped.
And that's
and being a DVD player in 2000.
Yes.
Yes.
Also,
being able to use it to play your music and video and movies. That was not small.
I just recall it had a really good library, too.
It did eventually have a really good library. Certainly didn't launch with one.
No, it was real barren for a while.
I guess I picked it up to play Final Fantasy 12 and
by that point,
Rock
sure.
Band.
Yeah, by that time it was rocking along. Honestly, by the time Onimusha came out, there was a big wave of games coming out because, like, I remember that was one of the earlier games that I picked up for the PS2. But like for a while, I only had a couple things. I think I mostly just had Tekken Tag Tournament for a while.
Ah, yes.
Onimusha was actually quite early. I got a PS2 the year it came out for my birthday, which was I think 2000.
Yes, October here, and then Onimusha was January of the next year. So yeah, it was very early.
I just remember the game I had that I liked was SSX. I also had like a Madden game that I didn't care about at all.
Gotta have a sports game.
SSX was fun.
I bought SSX. I was a big fan of 1080 on the 64.
But yeah, the sorry, we're kind of veering afield, but yeah, like Donkey Kong versus Mario versus Donkey Kong, very fun. And if you haven't played it, you can check it out. If you want like a more cerebral platformer, like not that cerebral, but it's just like a Mario game.
But there's puzzles.
There are puzzles.
It's
and there are
charming.
platforms.
The series is super charming.
I'm really excited that all of these games are coming out on it. Also, I'm very curious to see if there's going to be a Switch 2 or what the next gen Nintendo thing is going to be, because it feels like we're getting close to end of life.
I mean, there have been rumors
Who even knows?
that they're getting ready to announce whatever the next thing is, but we'll see.
The other game, I am pretty sure is in fact a brand new game, which is Princess Peach Showdown.
That is in fact a brand new game.
Showtime?
Yes, Showtime.
Yeah.
Showtime. It's important because you're in a theater.
Yes. You are the star.
You're a star. You are, in fact, interacting with stars that are turning you into a star by having you dress up and do an awesome Princess Peach anime girl, magical girl transformation.
Yes.
Where she turns into whatever costume she's going to do.
It was so weird to see the like marketing for this that was like Princess Peach in her first game. And I'm like, what? Princess Peach has had at least 3 other dedicated games. What are you talking about?
I only know of one.
While.
I only know of one of those. 3 games?
There's 2 on various Game Boys, although I don't remember which. One of them you had an umbrella, and the other one was...
That's the game I'm thinking of. It came out for the DS.
Yeah.
Super Princess Peach.
And then there was one on, black and white Game Boy.
Is this her first mainline console game?
I think this is her first mainline console game.
Yeah.
And I booted this up and expected something in the lines of I don't remember the name of the Princess Peach games, but the one where she's got an umbrella.
Sure.
Was that more of a platformer?
Yeah, it was it was basically 6 golden coins, but we put Peach in there.
Yeah, this is definitely a different thing.
And this is
that game is also not great as far as Nintendo platformers go.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
I did play that game.
This is the first game. This is the first Princess Peach face game that they care about. That they've put a bunch of effort into. But you get it you get it immediately. It's the same level of previously you'd boot up a Princess Peach game and you're playing a second or third tier Mario game. Whereas this is this has all of the production value of, Wonder.
Yeah. I mean this gets to be its own game. This doesn't feel like that Mario game, but with a Princess Peach skin.
It gets to be its own 6 different games actually.
Yeah, true. Because every play is its own play style.
There's a demo for this. I was not prepared for the cook.
Gotta make those cookies.
Yeah. Or decorate those cakes or solve a variety of other puzzle-like tasks on a very short time limit. It was interesting that I was not expecting even that amount of gameplay variety from this. And that's just, again, I played the demo. There's a lot more in this game than just the demo.
Yeah, it's really cool. I'm actually I'm randomly slightly disappointed that it's as sophisticated as it is, because my goal was to play this with my child, and I'm gonna have to wait a couple of years before that's reasonable.
Yeah, my child is a great age for this.
Yeah.
As soon as the demo was available, he wanted me to grab it, and he sat down and just burned through all the available content.
What
is
is
into it.
available in the demo?
Sword Fighter and I'm actually
It's a
not
sword
sure.
fighter and the chef.
Yeah, Chef.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I was
E-
the Sword Fighter, like, takes a lot of like reacting to things and stuff, and it was clearly very immediately understandable because he just got it.
They give Princess Peach a dodge with intentionally incredible amounts of invincibility frames.
Yes. The timing is quite forgiving.
Yes. Eli just got to. My son just got to the Thief and Detective, which were both very different play styles.
I'm really looking forward to the detective playstyle because that looks like my jam, just from what I've seen of it.
It feels very point and click adventure.
Yes.
Kind of, yeah. But no, I think I'm very excited for this, and I like them taking these swings and doing different things and being like, let's do something and figure out who we think fits into this. And I think it works really well for Peach to have all of these different like play styles and like bigger than mini games, I would call them, but different game modes.
Yeah.
So it's going to be weird that I'm the person talking about this thing, but have any of you heard of Plunderstorm?
Can't say that I have.
So
I thought this was a game about loot, and so frankly, I wasn't surprised, but it sounds like maybe I should be.
This
You
is the
should
WoW
be.
Battle Royale thing, right?
yes, it is.
I did hear
What?
that WoW had some sort of battle royale thing.
What
I did not know it was called
what
Plunderstorm.
if you put Fortnite inside of World of Warcraft?
Oh my!
I feel
Can I
like
just
you
tell?
were. I feel
Eh.
like you were like 10 years too late on one
Yeah.
of those concepts.
Yeah,
and
no,
4 years
like-
too late on
Like
the other.
that was my first thought when I heard them announce this thing. It's like a weird little like what is so bizarre about this is it's not actually inside of World of Warcraft. When you launch the game, you have your normal characters that you can log into, and you also have another button for Plunderstorm, which is a totally different game mode where you set up a brand new character just for that game mode. And it's mostly just cosmetic because like the bulk of the gameplay is you run around and you kill mobs in the Arathi Highlands, and they drop abilities that you pick up and then use those abilities. So very Fortnite-y if you think about you drop down without any weapons and you go find weapons and then that's what you use. And it's the same concept, but it's in they recycled the Arathi Highlands isolated zone that they had in Battle for Azeroth. It's bizarre, but it's actually kind of fun. Weirdly,
okay.
the
How
only
much-
what?
How much do I have to be willing to put up with WoW PvP?
Like it's a WoW PvP game. Like it's
entirely. It sounds like.
but none of your class, like there are no classes per se. Everybody just has like they start off with an ability that is cycles through like a sword swing and a pistol shot and a couple other things, and then you pick up weird abilities as you go, and those make up your kit. But like based on the little bit that I've played, I think I've made it 3 ranks or so, which is not very much, but probably played half dozen to maybe 10 matches. And like, it feels like the correct strategy for surviving as long as you can is just to avoid all other players for as long as you can. Just keep killing random raptors and spiders and everything to level your character up. And then eventually, like, you're going to have to fight someone as the arena shrinks. It's shockingly fun, but also requires a WoW subscription. So it's for a very specific demographic. But like, they didn't announce this until it was ready to play, and they just kind of threw it out there, and it's a limited time event. I probably won't play a ton more, but I thought it was interesting. it's kind of wild. Like they had on the WoW roadmap, they had this skull and crossbones flag that didn't have any information about it, and it caused people to wonder what the heck was coming out. And then they threw this WoW battle royale out without any prior announcement. It's bizarre.
I feel like this is not. Again, maybe I'm the wrong person to talk about this. I don't feel like this is WoW playing to its strengths.
I think it's WoW
What is
trying
the
to
strength of WoW?
Not PvP.
Borrowing ideas from other games.
I think.
Oh, wow.
I think. Well, so one of the things that's kind of been successful in Overwatch is all the little mini game modes, and I kind of think they're trying out that same idea with World of Warcraft. Because, I mean, Ammo, you've played a lot more Overwatch than I have, but don't they have like the whole arcade thing where you can play different little mini games temporarily?
Yeah. They had that, and like users can make their own and stuff like that. But I haven't played in a long time. But I remember some people had some pretty creative stuff in there.
Yeah, it was wild to me that like they decided in the year of our Lord 2024 to roll out a battle royale, but I mean it kind of works, sort of.
Wow.
Didn't Path of Exile do this some years ago?
Yes, they had a one of their short-term leagues was a battle royale, but like that was back when it was actually kind of relevant.
That was 6 years ago.
They quickly decided that was a bad idea and never brought it back, even though people keep trying to goad them into bringing it back.
I mean, they made it for April Fools, and then have ran it every weekend for the rest of the league. I could see them doing this again at some point.
I can see it being a lull event like they have done before when they know the next season is going to be further away than they thought it was going to be.
Is that what they do when development runs long? Just like run a bonus event weekend?
Yeah, like those November
That's how we got
events.
the Shifting Stones events and the Sentinel run.
Yeah, generally speaking, if they know they're not going to hit a development milestone, they create some events like Endless Delve.
Are there cosmetics associated with this?
That's kind of the reason. That's not the PoE one. I don't know. The Plunderstorm thing, yeah. There's like a free battle pass type track that as you gain rank, you get additional cosmetics. And I think the highest rank is like this really, really, really detailed parrot mount. So there are people that are absolutely grinding this out. I was curious because I saw it, people talking about it, and I'm like, I don't know, what the heck is this even? It wasn't bad. Like, it's not half bad. Okay, Thalen, Hugo nominees for best game.
Yeah. So the Hugo Awards, as you may or may not know, are awards given every year for science fiction and fantasy works. They are given at Worldcon. They've been going on for decades. This year, for the first time as a permanent yearly category, we have Best Game or Interactive Work. This was proposed as a category in 2021, and they did it as a one-off then, and Hades won Best Game in 2021. But this is the first time we've had it since then. It's the first time it's here as a yearly category, so we'll be seeing it every year going forward. But the interesting thing about the Hugos is, it's science fiction and fantasy fans nominating things and voting on them. So you're going to tend to lean towards things that are a little more story-based. And the number of people nominating tends to be comparatively small compared to the number of people that actually vote for the Hugos. So a lot of times, lesser-known things can sneak in. So this year, we've got Baldur's Gate 3, we've got Tears of the Kingdom, we've got Jedi Survivor. Those are like the really big three in the category. Belle, you'll be happy. Alan Wake 2 is on the list.
Yay.
And then I wish Mo was here because Dredge got nominated. And I'm surprised that it got nominated, but sure. Again, it doesn't take that many people putting it on their ballot to get something nominated. Typically, like numbers in the tens can successfully get something nominated depending on the category. And then a game that I had not heard of before, prior to this, Chants of Sinar.
Yeah, I had to look this up because
Yeah.
I've never even heard of this game.
Which, I mean,
Feels like a
it kind of
career
looks
failure.
like The Witness meets Tunic.
Uh,
It's based on the Tower of Babel. I'm here for this.
I know of this because the YouTube channel that makes Sudokus I follow played this.
Aha.
That is the only reason I know about it as well.
But yeah, this one you're like, I guess, trying to reunite different groups around a tower who speak different languages, and it looks interesting. But yeah, I just thought that like folks should know that this is a thing now, that the major science fiction and fantasy award is actually paying some attention to games now in 2024.
So, because this is also about the Hugos, is this Worldcon going to be officiated hopefully a little bit better than the last one?
I sure hope so. It's in Glasgow, and it is under a microscope. Have we talked about the 2023 Hugos?
I don't think we did.
Yeah, we talked about it in our Slack some because I think mostly because I pay attention to this stuff, and so I bring it up.
Mess.
But so the 2023, so to back up, the way Worldcon works, so the way the Hugo Awards work, the Hugo Awards are handled by Worldcon. Whoever is running Worldcon in a particular year is responsible for giving out the Hugo Awards that year and for handling the nomination process, figuring out the winners, all of it. A thing a lot of people don't understand about Worldcon, which is kind of weird, and it's possible that this may change to some degree in upcoming years due to recent events, is there is no like ongoing Worldcon organization. That's not a thing. Worldcon, each year's Worldcon is its own completely separate event held by its own particular group of people, and there is a group that oversees the bid process to host a Worldcon, and that's it. And beyond that, it's the responsibility for whoever got the hosting. And the way you host a Worldcon is basically you get the most fans to kick in enough money to say that we want to host a Worldcon. So it's a system that was created by libertarian white dudes in the 30s, and so surprise, surprise, it can be gamed. So in 2023, Chengdu in China bought themselves a Worldcon, or at least that's what it appears. Like it's a lot of this is difficult to suss out exactly what happened because of language issues and just communication between the West and China and so forth. But it is very clear that Chengdu wants to position itself as like a science fiction mecca. Like this is a thing that they want to do. There are big businesses in Chengdu spending a lot of money trying to do this. And apparently they spent some of that money to host Worldcon without fully understanding everything that entailed. So even before everything else, the whole Hugo process was kind of like things were late, things were running behind. It was hard to tell exactly what was going on. Then the list of nominees came out, and a lot of stuff that one would expect would be on there wasn't. And then the awards were given. And one of the things about the Hugos is after the awards are given, within 60 days, all of the data related to the nominations and the voting is supposed to be released so people can see like the numbers. And there are folks that do deep dives into the numbers and look at like all that stuff. And that data was released at the last possible moment, and immediately every single red flag went up. Like just all the red flags. The numbers did not make sense. And after a couple of weeks of people being like, was there censorship? Did the Chinese government get involved? What happened? One of the people that was involved in the process, one of the English-speaking people, released email chains. And basically it boils down to the main thing that appears to have happened is all of the Westerners who were assisting with, dealing with all this stuff, decided to take upon themselves to censor stuff that might cause political issues or embarrassment for China. So things like Iron Widow that should have been nominated, or I'm sorry, the author should have been up for like best new author, like easily.
Trivially.
Was not on the list. Is on the list this year. Would not normally be eligible, but an extension was made due to circumstances. A number of other strange things, like the Sandman was not present in either series or single episode, and it should have been in one or the other. And for whatever reason, they decided that probably because, and it seems like mostly is because Neil Gaiman was a bit outspoken about maybe having Worldcon in China isn't the best idea. Other people like that. Somebody got knocked off the nominees basically because they visited Tibet once, like that kind of thing. So yeah, 2023 was a mess. Everybody knows it was a mess. Nobody involved in 2023 is allowed to be involved in the Hugos ever again. There are rumors that one of them like tried to get into a convention in the UK this weekend and got summarily booted. But yeah, so Glasgow's under a microscope and hopefully will be handled better. On the bright side, one of the things that we were hoping to see coming out of 2023 was more Chinese language nominations in 2024, because people who attended the 2023 Worldcon automatically are allowed to nominate for 2024. And there are Chinese nominations in the majority of categories, like at least one Chinese language work in most categories, which is good. Like there's a big fandom there. They deserve to be heard. Just wish it hadn't happened, the way it did. So yeah.
Yeah, and it seemed like there was a lot of people who were either at the top of the list or like they definitely should have been. Was it the names were left off of the voting ballot on the first year, or they were on there but I thought it was they didn't even make the final ballots.
It was mostly that they didn't even make the final ballots, that they should have been. They should have made the nominations and didn't. And like it was suspicious initially when the nominations come out, but people were like, well, like maybe like a whole lot of Chinese fans nominated and didn't nominate these things. So maybe the ballots are just going to be majority Chinese language stuff. That would make sense in this situation, but that was not what we saw. And then so that was suspicious. And then when the numbers came out, it was the nice thing about the numbers being released the way they are is you can't hide that sort of thing. It just doesn't work. But yeah, it's let's see if I can not butcher their name. Siran J Zhao very much should have been up for the Astounding Award in 2023. Is on the list this year, so good chance that they'll walk away with it. But we'll see. If all of that was interesting to you and you want to know more about this, Comestros Philapton is a blogger who pays particular close attention to the Hugos and science fiction fandom in general. Also, File 770 is like the place to go for science fiction news on the internet. It's been around for like 20-something years, updated daily. It's pretty great.
I was definitely following the saga with interest, mostly like from observing the Hugo community and like the challenges with these institutions that were designed with democratic ideals in mind, and the way that they can be corrupted when they are so heavily systematized and don't have.
Well, I mean, the Hugos had issues before.
I mean, it's not the first time the Hugos have had major issues.
I mean,
the big thing this time was that it was coming from inside the house. Previously, when there were issues, it was mad. It was mad creators mad that they didn't get nominated, being mad, and they got their fans up in a tizzy for like political reasons. But this time it was actually the people administering the Hugos. That's what made this one.
Those reasons are why Chef Tingle got nominated for Hugo Award, though. So
it is. So yeah,
things happen sometimes.
So I pushed this further down the list as to try and make sure some of the other topics got seen. But Necropolis League happened this week, and it's been an interesting ride.
So obviously you're playing it. Who else is playing?
I am also playing it.
Carthun and a friend of mine from Mastodon, Rick, also playing. Not that we're actively playing together, but so there's I think there's 4 of us. I think there may have been another person that I saw that's in the guild logging in, but I am shocking to no one. I am playing Righteous Fire.
Gasp.
Inconceivable.
Shocking to no one, I am playing Hexblast. We're on our normal stuff.
It's fine.
Hexblast and Righteous Fire are like number 1 and number 2 popular builds right now. Because
there were so many shakeups. I think everybody went to an old standby.
Well, and then all of the other old standbys got nerfed into the ground. Well, not an old standby.
Tornado Shot is gone.
Tornado Shot is gone.
And I don't think that anyone has quite figured out what the best next replacement for Tornado Shot is. Like, Lightning Arrow is still fairly strong, but like, there's been a lot of weird things going on with the League content specifically.
What do you mean by that?
So I hear, I am not there yet, but I hear that some of the modifications can get kind of brutal in red maps.
I'm shocked.
So
okay, so here's the League mechanic. You go up to your next map, you open up a list, and it shows you a bunch of lists of how you're going to make this map harder.
Right.
What do you get for making the map harder?
We don't know.
Funny.
We don't know.
Why do you want reward for your risk?
Part of the problem with this, the complaints about this League mechanic is, like, last League you had the forest and it was optional whether or not you went into the forest. This is not like Lake of Kalandra. It was optional whether or not you built a map to run. This is not optional. It's just like,
can you choose to not pick it up when you first see the guy?
No.
Really?
No, I think it's just going to be on the doors from that point on.
Oh, that's so bad.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, usually League content is somewhat opt-in. Like,
right, like
with the Sentinels, you could just not push the button. I mean, nothing's making you push the button.
Yeah, but
you don't have to.
But the button.
It is a shiny button.
This is the problem. Is like you had the button and you wanted to press it because like that was what you were there for. But
it made all the mobs light up with fun loot symbols.
Yeah.
Yeah. This time around, like, you get some modifiers on every map. Could be positives, could be negatives, and your option is to spend these things called all flames to replace them or to drag them to minimize the damage that it's going to do. But it also requires you to have memorized what the map content is. Like, which...
Are you saying you haven't done that, Bell?
Because doesn't it basically like give you a list of here are the things that can be on this map and here's the modifiers and you got to figure out where you want to put them? Like, I don't know what anything's named.
Well, and also, like, I don't remember which one of these things that look the same are the ones that are the majority of the content of the map.
Well, they do. Whoa. They do tell you if the mob is likely to be there in high density, low density, medium density, whatever. So you do get that. But, like, you still just have this question of, like, why do I care? Like, what is this League mechanic for?
So I've got to do extra credit work before entering every map, is what you're saying.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. So, like, while we've been podcasting, I've now made it to maps, and it's exactly what you expect. Like, you open a map, and, like, the first thing you do is figure out which one of these, debuffs is going to screw you the most.
Hey,
you know what I felt like Path of Exile needed more of? Friction between maps.
Oh, well, so the funny thing is, Tam, that the Path of Exile devs absolutely agree with you because they've said that one of their big problems is that there's too much busy work between maps. And so that's why they implemented this new system with the scarabs and got rid of a whole bunch of stuff. But now there's more busy work in the League mechanic?
I continue, like, I don't think they know how not to get high on their own supply.
Like, I've got to be honest, I pictured this as just two devs, like, go like back and forth, like each adding their thing. Like one dev's just like, we need to make it less. And the other one comes like, no, more, less, more. This is what we get.
It does feel like there is some lack of communication between like the league mechanic team and the core team.
I mean, it's not that big a studio.
Yeah, I know.
Like, I guess it's like WoW, right? Like, does WoW know how to not make WoW?
Yeah, I don't know. This one, and the thing is the reward is interesting. Like the idea that so it's going to be a new way of crafting items.
That's the theory.
You get these bodies that drop, and the bodies say like 200% more caster modifiers, and you put up to 5 bodies together, so you can like try and find all of these bodies that you then put in.
Oh, yeah, but it's more than up to 5. Like you can have an entire graveyard in a single craft.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You can plant the entire yard full of bodies, and it will be a single craft.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I can see how this can get. I did not realize you could do that. So yeah, like you can possibly like guarantee that you're going to get a 6 link. That's interesting.
Can I do that at the time where getting a 6 link is relevant to me, or
probably
do I have
not?
to go heavily into maps for this?
I mean, in theory, like I had a bunch of, guarantees 1 additional link. And if you put, 6 of them into the same craft, you would spit out a 6 link.
There's no guarantee you get 6 sockets on that item. So it's not guaranteed to be a 6 link.
Oh, interesting. No, I think it would. But the problem is most of them say up to a maximum of 4 or up to a maximum of 5. Maybe later on you get up to a maximum of 6.
That's a no, Tam.
I mean, technically there's only 5 links.
So yeah.
Yada, yada, yada.
Right.
But
like,
I mean,
like it's a thing for people who are either twinking alts or
I don't even think it's for them.
That they're yeah, this is like, are you the hardcorest of the hardcore mechanic?
I don't think it's even that. Like, I've planted 22 bodies at once to craft an item, and the end result wasn't something I would have picked up off the ground.
Yeah, this is the problem, is that this is a system that is for no one. Like, the league mechanic is a crafting mechanic that is completely overshadowed by all of the other existing crafting mechanics. Even
though they just nerfed one.
Which one did they nerf?
I mean, any existing crafting guide involving
Varici,
what is it?
Sure. Yeah.
No, not that. Much, much worse. Build orbs. Build chaos orbs.
Sure.
Right.
No
but
longer
also,
exist.
Varici no longer exists either.
Sure, but that was just colors. I mean, this is modifiers.
Betrayal in general got nerfed heavily.
This feels like it's designed to compete in the same neighborhood as fossils. It does not compete with fossils.
Right. It's not even vaguely close. Like, that's the thing that frustrates me the most is I would think, based on the way that these modifiers look on paper, I would think this should at least be as predictable as a fossil craft or a Reforge type craft from Harvest. So like Reforge Chaos, Reforge Fire. It's not that good. Like, just because you stack a bunch of chance to have fire on an item doesn't mean it's going to have an actual fire modifier on it.
Yes. The other thing that this has going against it is this is a crafting system that is designed to do a thing I think they want to let people be able to do, but their game is like so functionally working against it. Because the idea is you craft an item, and that item should be good. Like, you craft this item from whole cloth, and that item should be one you use. This game is absolutely bad at, like, crafting in this game is refining an item constantly. And it's such an annoying process, but it's still the way you craft, is to refine an item up. And this is trying to go against that paradigm, and it's just not working in this game.
Yeah, because I think like up until Bell said the thing like was something that he wouldn't even bother picking up. Like I guess my assumption was that you were probably getting a base somewhere and putting it in a slot and then doing this to the base, but
No, you
What's
don't even get to choose your base, and that's honestly the worst part about the system is you don't get to choose your base.
If you can't pick your base, then what's the point? Like
you can put in a thing that says your item has no dexterity requirements, and you can put in another thing that says your item has no intelligence requirements, which means you're going to get a pure armor base.
Yeah, but which one?
But there's a wide difference in usefulness of pure armor bases.
Ugh.
Like implicits matter. Yeah,
not
like
as much
this
in
is
last epoch, but yes, they do.
I am disappointed.
Yeah, it's kind of wild how the problem is like all the rest of the changes still excite me about this league, but the mechanic is awful. Like the scarab changes look really cool. I'm getting a fair amount of scarabs already, so it is going to be something that I can actually engage with.
Like, this is the first league that I have started in the actual league since, like, kind of learning how any of this works. So I'm having fun with, like, I can get a couple of chaos early and buy a Dread Arc, and then my entire campaign is hilarious.
Yeah, like I bought a very early Cloak of Flames, and it's not a well-rolled Cloak of Flames, but it was like a 2 Chaos Cloak of Flames, so it's like 4 link, and it got me, very smooth through the entire campaign. I'm still using a 4 link Cloak of Flames in maps, and it's just fine. I do wonder if this is going to be one of those leagues where next week there is a patch that wildly changes how this mechanic works, because obviously I don't think it's working as intended for anyone.
What do you mean by that?
Like, there's been times where they have changed the league mechanics significantly in a week 2 patch.
Like, I'm curious what they would even change here.
The thing that I think they would probably change is make it optional somehow to where you don't have to interact with it if you don't want to. I am for quote unquote tanky characters, I think it's going to be perfectly fine just because like you can roll with any of the mechanics. There's been some interesting stuff. Like I got the Nameless Seer, which was from the last league that basically just gives you a unique. So like that was cool. I've encountered Omen drops, and I've encountered I'm just now starting maps that I've already had 3 Divine Orbs drop, which is wild. Like they were all in the campaign. The first one was in Act 4.
I think this is some Bell luck here.
I think so. Like you got my luck last league, and apparently I got it back.
Yeah. I mean, I'm having fun. It's like this is a new experience for me, kind of. I got to see what it was like looking at an active view trying to grab a Dread Arc, snipe out a Dread Arc. But like the league mechanic is pretty sad and pretty frustrating.
It's not good. Like this is the state of the game is better, but like this is like Calandra levels of frustrating.
I mean, it sounds worse than Calandra, because at least you could just casually play Calandra if you didn't care. And like, sometimes I go into this place and fight a bunch of stuff and move on with my life.
Yeah, like I made a bunch of hilarious maps that had nothing but crabs. They were great. And this one is like, you kind of just have to like let the dice lay, as you're zoning into a map, and it's just an additional layer of randomness on top of the already random map modifiers. I
will be honest, I haven't really been paying attention to them. I haven't noticed it. It's not been something like I've cared about. I'm pretty sure the fact that I am playing Hexblast in the middle of the campaign means I don't have to care about basically anything at this point.
It's apparently real bad for Ruthless.
Sure, that's not me.
Yeah,
that could never be me.
Like you already made a decision to play a frustrating version of the game, a more frustrating version of the game. So like, I guess that's a thing.
Like really, I am the market for an easier version of standard of Trade League.
Like, I think their idea was, oh, well, like, if you don't want to engage with this, you can just turn everything into frogs, which are like these all flame things that drop that allows you to, replace a hard mob with a really easy mob. But like, they don't happen often enough for anyone to ever do that. I don't know.
So I'll be honest, nothing here seems as bad as what the forest did to the maps last time.
Yeah, but again, you could just not go into the forest. Like,
it's fair.
As much as it sucks to just not engage with the league mechanic, you had that option.
Yeah, that was a thing you could absolutely do.
And I frequently did when I was doing Guardian maps. Or when I was trying to get a level, because getting a level means you should do things the most boring way possible.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yep.
You know what is funny? The death penalty in Last Epoch is you get no reward for a map, and I still like that better. Because in Last Epoch, at least I'm not going backwards.
Like, you didn't gain anything, and that sucks. But you didn't, like, actively lose progress.
The problem that I have with the Last Epoch one, though, is you still oftentimes have to run the stupid map.
Sure.
To clear it out.
That's totally fine. I'm going to do that. I'm not going to get anything for it. I understand.
Yeah, like I don't want to have to run the thing that I feel like if you lose, it should just clear the slot for you and let you move on to the next one.
Like, I am fine if they want to say, hey, there should be some penalty for failure. This is your penalty for failure. Fine. That's better than, like, putting me back probably, like, 30 minutes of play. Like 30, 40 minutes of play. Possibly more if I chain die to something. Like, if I chain die...
a lot more if you're, like, above level 90-ish.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting... this has like the Last Epoch versus PoE debate has like echoes of the old WoW versus any other MMO that tries to occur, because it's you're competing. A game that just came out is competing with a game that's had how many years of content? Like, it's an impossible competition, and I think that it's apparent just like by the numbers that Last Epoch is tapping into an audience. I mean, we've talked about it, that like wants something fundamentally different. Like Last Epoch and Path of Exile are superficially the same game, but the experience is very different.
Yeah, I mean, Last Epoch just needs more varied content.
Yeah,
like that's all it needs.
But that's just time,
right?
Like
exactly. Last just
Epoch needs more time to get a chance.
Yep. Like it needs 5-6 more cycles, and it'll probably be fine.
Yeah. Whereas PoE has to like contend with the fact that it has competition that has a different ethos.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a much harder ask, I think.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I think PoE is suffering from fundamental flaws in its design that maybe PoE 2 will be better about, but I don't know. It's being made by the same people who don't seem to think that those flaws are flaws.
I feel like PoE 2 is...
It is becoming clear that it's not being made entirely by the same people, even though it's coming from the same company.
Yeah. Well, and even PoE 1 has had a changing of the guards between the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, but the last couple of seasons haven't changed the underlying ethos of the game.
They haven't, and they're not going to, for the most part.
No, they're not going to.
There are limits to what can be done.
I mean,
without like,
yes,
sure, you can rip it up and start over, but they're also kind of doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's unlikely that it would be difficult for them if they so desired to say something like, "Oh yeah, we got rid of Orbs of Regret. You can just do that." Like,
yeah, that would be that. Yeah, I think
like that would be a core major shift towards more like what Last Epoch's design ethos is, and like it's not impossible for PoE to do it. I mean, I obviously don't know their like underlying backend. Maybe it is, in which case, like,
I mean, even if they didn't get rid of them,
that's rough.
I bet they have the ability to toggle how often they drop.
Yeah, like
just jack that up about 100 times. Yeah.
Yeah, like, oh, hey, every quest gives you 70. Cool, whatever. Like, you're just flooded with them. Cut them off, like, turn off all of the scripts that turn them to other things and just increase the drop rate to something ridiculous. Like, yeah. Like, it's not that it would be impossible for them to do or even kludge in, but they very clearly don't want to. And I think that's the thing that I'm like, I'm skeptical. Like, I'm skeptical of PoE 2 in the way that Bell, in a different way than Bell is skeptical. And like, yeah, it does seem to be different people, but I haven't seen anything that suggests to me that the different people are necessarily giving much other than lip service to the idea that there's an ethos change.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you run into the problem that, once you have an existing bought-in fandom, they are, by definition, bought into the way things are and are going to actively, argue for that and against any changes. So,
I mean, it's the biggest challenge about making a sequel to a live service game
mm-hmm.
is that, like, the people who are bought into your live service game are probably interested in continuing to play the live service game. So, like,
Yeah.
how are you going to talk them into moving to the new one? And if you not, then it's like, okay, you're looking for a completely different audience, but like, then you're looking for a completely different audience.
Mm-hmm.
It's the WoW 2 problem.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and if you position this thing as a sequel, then it's probably not going to hit a completely different audience. Like, because they'll look at it and say, "Oh, yeah, I already know about that thing. I didn't like it."
Yeah, like it's a challenge. I mean, putting aside that I find a lot of their like live streams or whatever insufferable.
Yeah.
Like, putting that aside, I think that it's a very difficult challenge that they have.
And I would love to be completely wrong and see them knock it out of the park and come up with something amazing that I want to play. I would be
Yeah, I don't
surprised.
think it's going to be any more approachable. I think it's going to be a different kind of unapproachable.
Yeah, because I'll be honest, like, I haven't been in much of an ARPG mood in general recently. Like, I think I'm in chapter 5 of Last Epoch. Like, I'm not that far in, but when I do feel in an ARPG mood again, probably going to go back to Last Epoch, not Path of Exile.
I think they understand some problems, but maybe not to the degree they need to. Like, I at least appreciate that they understand it is a problem, that there is as wide of a gap between top and bottom tier players.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the tone of their like commentary on it, to me, has a and possibly this is just me reading into it, but it has what feels like an overtone of, we'd like to get people to stop being scrubs in our game.
Yeah.
Like, man, it's bad that we've got so many scrubs.
All these people need to get good.
Well, yeah.
Versus
They were talking about, so when I heard it, they were talking about it from like a design principle of trying to get that multiplier down, which I think is good, but I think you have to accept that, like, there is going to be a worse player, and maybe if they aren't thinking of that, then yeah, I agree. They're completely out of their minds. Like, you need a build to come together from what people are trying. It needs to be intuitive.
Well, it needs to either be intuitive, or it needs to be easy to change if you intuited it wrong.
Yeah, you need to be able to iterate on ideas. That's the biggest thing that you just cannot do in the current system.
Like, I think PoE's biggest problem is that a tiny handful of people willing to write forum posts dictate the shape of the game to a deeply outsized degree. And I suspect that they don't see that as a problem, and they say, oh man, we've got really dedicated influencers on our game.
Yeah, these people are so dedicated that we must be doing something right.
Anyways,
So,
it's a new league. There's a new economy. That's the thing I'm probably most excited about right now.
Yep. I don't know that I have ever been as engaged in picking things up as early as this, so that's been interesting.
What do you mean by picking things up?
Like, I don't know that I have been trying to snap things up off the market on day one.
Like, is it just that you have a really good idea of exactly what you need so you can be watching for it immediately? Or
Yes.
Yes, it is that. Like, I knew what I wanted, so I was looking for items just casually while I was leveling.
Yeah.
And then when I would see something, I would snap it up. And like, I've never really engaged in trade before the market solidified, for lack of a better term. Because like right now, everything's really cheap.
Or really relatively expensive. There's some stuff that's really relatively
Like
expensive.
it's either dirt cheap because nobody has any money, or it's outrageously expensive because someone would like to have some money.
I mean, I don't know. Profane proxies are like 90s chaos right now.
Yeah, Barracks Respite is like 40 chaos, and I don't know why, but whatever.
Is it part of the Righteous Fire build? Are we both on the most meta builds right now?
We are
wants
both
our
on the
items?
most meta builds. Yeah. And like, to be fair, I think a lot of the problem I had with Bone Shatter last league was that by the time we got into trade, I did not realize how outrageously expensive a good axe is. Like hundreds of divines.
As someone who has league started Sunder several times, I knew this already.
Yeah, like I was not aware of how outrageously expensive even a 900 DPS axe is. Righteous Fire by reference is much cheaper. But honestly, other than a couple of relatively reasonable uniques, I was able to craft most everything I needed in SSF, our Bell League version. So I've been way more functional this time, faster.
Yeah, and it's fun getting your build online quick and like trying to get into the economy and figuring out what you can do.
Yep. So Secrets of Grindia. Tam, have you been partaking of it?
Topic.
What?
Oh, I was gonna rearrange things.
Okay.
Because some of the PoE stuff reminds me of another game that is having a bunch of stuff that's going on with it. Age of Sigmar is updating its rule set.
Aha.
The 4.0 edition.
Like, I know Age of Sigmar's
So
been around for a while, but it feels weird to me that we're up to 4.0 already.
To be fair, it's only the third set of real rules.
Yeah, like it is somewhat important to understand that this game only sort of had rules for a while, and like I would say that the third edition of the game is the first time that it's had like an actually tight, reasonable set of rules. And there's some weird stuff in its rules that it's very clearly been like Age of Sigmar 3.0 is clearly like a prototype for a bunch of stuff that they weren't sure would work in their quote unquote mainline, that being 40k, but wanted to try out. Age of Sigmar has much like Path of Exile. Age of Sigmar has a massive have versus have not gap as far as players who understand what the game is. And I think that, and like one of the things that turns people off just immediately about Age of Sigmar is the concept of priority in the game, like which they're keeping, but they want to make more of a core rule, which I think is probably good. I'm tentative about it, but the concept is in the game, every round you roll to see who takes the first turn that round, which means that if somebody goes second in a round and then wins priority, they can take 2 turns in a row.
Aha.
And it's something that at high levels of play makes for a lot of compelling decision making and like strategy about how far forward to push, how hard to go. It makes taking second turn an interesting choice. It emphasizes the fact that it is a game about positioning, and it's a game about positioning and movement more than it is a game about, march your stuff down the middle and punch the other guy. And it's hugely inaccessible as a result. Because in order to understand how to react, because what happens is new players will play, somebody will get double turned and tabled, just absolutely wrecked out of the game. And like if you play a lot of 40k, the idea that somebody would take 2 turns in a row is like, oh, okay, so that's just the table your opponent rule. Which it's not supposed to be, But like for new players, it absolutely is. I mean, when we're just playing casual games around, we don't even roll for priority. We just alternate turns because, you know, we're relatively casual players. We're not playing at the, you know, we're opting into a slightly different rule set to make it more of the game we want to play. But you see like high level tournament players who like defend it to the death because it's the thing that makes Age of Sigmar an interesting minis game. Like it's one of the most unique features of it that just isn't seen elsewhere.
So how do you get priority?
Every round you roll off. Ties go to the person who had priority in the previous round.
And the winner chooses who goes first.
And the winner chooses who goes first that next round. And different, it's, you know, it ends up being a thing that creates a lot of difference in factions, you know, again, at relatively high levels of play, because it's like, oh, this faction is very much like a glass cannon. They really want to if they get a chance, they really want to take the double as soon as they can to do as much damage as possible because they've got a glass jaw. Whereas you've got other, like, I'm playing a super tanky faction. I don't care if you take a double against me. I'm just going to laugh it off. And then later in the game, when I can be more impactful, I can take the double.
But
possibly.
You don't actually get the ability to like control when you take a double, do you? It's just when you win a roll, right?
No, but if somebody takes you can only get a double turn if you were the second player in a given round.
Yeah.
So if somebody doubles you, they can't double you again. It may be that you don't get to double them,
Sure.
but they can't double you a second time.
And I gather you're giving up, what is it, choosing a tactic, it says, I think?
Yeah, so in the
to take a double turn. So there's like a downside to it.
Yeah. So in the current rules, there's no downside. In the new rules, there's the downside that like you can't score if you take a double. Like a significant portion of your points. You're basically saying, I'm going to be able to win so hard that I can give up basically a turn's worth of scoring in favor of extra punchy or whatever.
Yeah, of just taking opponents' minis off the board. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I can see this making for a more interesting game, but it definitely sounds like something that you need to be aware of when putting together your list. Like I need to be able to handle the possibility that my opponent gets a double turn and also presumably, you know, take advantage of it if I get one. Like that
Right.
that factors into how you build your army.
But you know, it's one of those things that like for relatively new players, that's nuance that's just not gonna come up. It's like that's nuance that's just not gonna come up. But for experienced players, they're like, oh yeah, just get good.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's a problem. But it was what made the PoE discussion made me think of that.
I mean, luckily, like you said, you're doing. It sounds like that's something you could very easily, assuming both players are on board with it, just not have that be part of your match.
Yeah.
For just casual play. I mean, for tournament play, you better be ready for that.
It's interesting because usually, like, there is a advantage conferred to the player going second because is there not in this?
Depends
like,
on the minis game, but most minis games have historically had problems with second player as at a huge disadvantage.
Yeah, but they try and balance that by giving some benefit to them. Like it might not work.
While this is common in board games, minis games tend not to do this.
You got to have an element of luck, or otherwise, what's the fun?
Say again?
Just the minis games, you know, they've been around a long time, and rolling dice has just always been, you know, a part of them. And in a lot of cases, maybe the effect of those dice rolls has been outsized. Like maybe stuff really shouldn't be randomized gets randomized, and
like
you know,
your core stats in a role-playing game,
which is how we got into with D&D having completely randomized stats starting out because it spun out of mini games. Yes, that's exactly where I was going with that.
And I think it's, I mean, very much to their credit. Like once upon a time, the design ethos around minis games and early RPGs wasn't like, it wasn't you're trying to have a tight, balanced experience. Like your designers of the time would be like, whatever, that's just a spreadsheet.
Yeah. No, the early minis games, I was incredibly simulationist, and like, yeah.
Yeah, it's like super simulationist plus you're there to see what happens.
Mhm.
Like it's not so much, it's like it's experience engine. It's not a game per se.
Right. Yeah, it's less about your side winning than about seeing how this particular battle shakes out.
Which is inherited from the historical side of that hobby, that are literally just wanting to see how a historical event that they know all the details of might have played out.
Yeah, like if these elements of this, if this thing that actually happened were different in this way, what effect might that have had?
Yeah, or even if they're the same, we know on paper the results of this battle. What might it have looked like in situ?
Yeah, like if different choices had been made by the commanders, what could that have done?
Have there ever been any mini games that were more explicitly trying to focus on like the story narrative and like?
I mean, yeah, Games Workshop games circa 1980 whatever to about 2015,
16.
Yeah, I mean that was part of what made Warhammer and then Warhammer 40K like this new amazing thing. Was like it was in a world with either magic or sci-fi stuff, completely different. And in both cases, there were these ongoing stories and like big campaign modes and things that,
Yeah, I mean, and the games themselves were really like, I mean, I've been down on 40K before because I don't think that 40K was well designed to be a game so much as an experience engine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And positioning itself as a game and not an experience engine felt disingenuous.
Yeah. I mean, again, I would say early Warhammer and 40K inherited a lot of the downsides of those, simulationist early war games. And it took a long time to develop into something actually reasonably balanced.
Yeah, because the step that they took after being pure like simulationist, essentially sci-fi or fantasy historicals, wasn't game with a competitive rule set. It was, this is the hobby. You are doing this as the hobby. We are, our tournaments grade you on, not just your performance in a match, but also the, paint jobs on your minis and in a lot of cases, the choices of minis you decided to bring and how well those matched the narrative of the universe, which, was a thinly veiled way to say, hey, if you only brought the good units, then you got fewer points because that's not what they would have really done. But it sort of takes away from like, this is a game, or it takes away from the game aspect and is more a like, it's a different thing. It's hard to even really define it.
It's a lifestyle.
Well, see, that's the thing is like, I guess what I'm getting at is it seems like it's good at creating these moments, but not like, I would be curious to see how the campaign mode works for this, but like creating a canonized story amongst you and the people in the campaign. Like you say it's about creating stories, but are the stories anything other than like, oh, we had this sick battle between each other?
I mean, no, in the same way that like, the stories are like your WoW raid stories. Like, man, we thought we were all going to lose, but we held out at the, till the bitter end. Or, man, we thought we had this in the bag, but I just couldn't take down their leader, and their leader, wiped us. And then you like, fanfic your own narrative around that.
Sure. I guess what I keep thinking of is like, this is sort of the other side of this is Dungeons and Dragons, where like it started off coming from this, and then we decided actually we want the results to be smoother because our focus is really about telling stories with these characters.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm like, is there something where you have your unit of dudes, but the focus is really telling a story with them as opposed to doing a battle and seeing what stories come out?
Yes, that game is Necromunda.
I was going to say Necromunda.
Okay.
And Necromunda makes some immense sacrifices in terms of game
It sure does.
in order to serve this.
I mean, I guess your
It
other
is very
option there-
cool, but it sure does.
Yeah.
I mean, Necromunda / Mordheim.
Yeah. Mordheim was the other one that did this.
Or your other option, if you like American football, is Blood Bowl.
Yeah. Blood Bowl also does this.
They have Dungeon Bowl now, but I have no idea what that actually is.
Me either. And then of course, War Machine happened, and it took 40K, like it took Games Workshop like a decade to catch up to what was happening there. But now their games are pretty pretty tight and pretty well thought out. Like outside of some nasty oversights that occur sometimes, like whoops, this faction has a 70+% win rate. Like that's bad, but they've mostly gotten away from that kind of thing happening, which is good. And this version of AOS is hopefully like them being able to think about that a bit more, because it was still pretty experimental.
Well,
And,
I mean, they've had to come to the realization that they are making a game, not a hobby, not a sales brochure.
Right.
Because that was the problem for ages, is the thing that was competitive was whatever was sold last month and advertised in White Dwarf.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The good stuff is the new stuff. They've actually had kind of the opposite problem this edition so far in 40K, where like they release a new stuff and it's bad.
I mean, dwarves are paying for the sins of their unreleased rules.
Yeah. I mean, Dark Angels got gutted.
Yeah, that was unfortunate though.
And AOS is getting away from they're finally getting out from under the long shadow of Warhammer Fantasy, especially now that
In the funniest way possible.
I mean, yes, in the funniest way possible.
It helps that the old world is like its own game again.
Yeah, like look, if
I'm
you
making
want to
fantasy
play,
into its own game.
yeah, if you want to play old Warhammer Fantasy, fine. If you absolutely must,
Hey, Bretonia forever.
I will refrain from making the you can play Bretonia in Age of Sigmar joke, much as I want to.
In a way. No, I do think that's hilarious.
But yeah, like it's I've been chatting with a handful of the more competitive side of the Age of Sigmar, and like they agree that the biggest problem the game has is onboarding, because it's got a bunch of rules that like to effectively use them you need a bunch of deep knowledge that you just don't have unless you have a tutor. And it turns out that expecting your players to have a tutor is a little unrealistic. But I mean, that was how War Machine did it. They just put a lot of time and effort into their program for it.
I will always be amused because War Machine's like onboarding recommendation at the start was possibly the most toxic thing I've ever seen.
Oh my god, yeah.
It was, hey, you should find a friend to play with. One of you can have this Kadoran battle box. The other can have the Signarin battle box. The Kadoran battle box is, I want to say, P. Sorsha versus
Striker.
Base Striker, P. Striker. P. Striker probably had like a 2% win rate.
Yikes.
I thought you meant page 5.
Oh,
I thought you meant that too.
No.
Every like the response to like decades of Games Workshop being like, we don't make a competitive game, we make a hobby, was War Machine coming onto the scene and very openly being like, we are making a competitive game, with like every page 5 of every one of their rule books was this like manifesto is too kind a word, a screed.
Yeah.
That was like the underlying ethos of this is a game, this is intended to be a competitive game. There is going to be a person who wins and a person who loses. And especially because this is a game about combos like Magic, you're going to have some pretty, like, you may get tabled because you just didn't see the combo coming.
I
Just
feel like
like
that's
in
less
Magic.
likely than the other thing happening to you.
Is what?
I feel like that was less likely than the other thing happening to you, since those games had an instant loss condition.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's usually what the combo was doing. But yeah, I mean, you hit a point and it's like, but they all ended with like, play like you got a pair. Christ. It was unbelievably toxic verbiage. That was, essentially calling out Games Workshop, but...
That is kind of what happens when some folks break off of a studio and are trying to differentiate themselves.
Yeah.
I remember some of the stuff coming out of Image back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of
very similar to
historical
that.
examples.
There was a lot of that
games
happening
marketing.
in the 90s.
Yeah, didn't end in the 90s. But yeah, it turns out it's hard to define yourself by what you aren't.
Sega does what Nintendo don't.
Which is why they don't make consoles anymore.
Whoops. Nintendo doesn't not make consoles, therefore.
That's probably a show, I think, time-wise.
Probably.
Seems right.
Any final thoughts about anything?
If you didn't want me to call him Armoire, you should have named him something else.
Exactly.
The main NPC is Arimor, Arimor, which at first you're like, oh, it's the armorer. No, that's not right. And then my second read was Armoire, and that just stuck.
Yeah, that's it. That he will always be Armoire.
Sounds right to me.
Necropolis Armoire.
Dragon's Dogma 2 came out about a week ago, but I haven't had a chance to play it because I was very busy last weekend and haven't gotten a chance to play it this past week. But I started the game and it seems fun.
I have
officially finished FF14 Rebirth, or FF7 Rebirth, and what a wild ride. Like, I mean,
so good.
I hope you're ready to hear about it from me for basically the rest of the year, because it's going on the Games of the Year list.
Yes.
There's no challenge there.
the PC version of Horizon Forbidden West came out last week, I think, and I only made it about halfway through it on the console, so I started from scratch and played all the way through this week, and it's good.
And as a bit of a spoiler for next week, Secrets of Grindia, we've mentioned, is out like officially, and you should try it. Good.
Yep. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again next week. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See you.